The South Korean military says North Korea has fired at least 10 missiles, one ballistic weapon flying across their maritime border for the first time. Air raid sirens sounded on a remote island controlled by Seoul off the peninsula's eastern coast. The latest launch came as Pyongyang called for an end to current South Korean and US Air Force drills.
Well, it's really this one missile out of the 10 that we're focusing on. It's this missile that was fired towards South Korean waters that landed in international waters, but off the South Korean coast, less than 40 miles, 60 kilometres from the South Korean coast, in between it and a small remote island off the east coast. And this is the first time that the North Koreans have ever fired a missile in this direction.
We are hearing that Iran plans to send about 1,000 more weapons to Russia, including advanced guided missiles for Moscow's war in Ukraine. Tehran has already supplied deadly drones. This comes a short time after the mayor of Kyiv announced full power is back on in the capital. It was restored 24 hours after Russian missiles targeted critical infrastructure in Kyiv and across the country. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says most of the missiles Moscow fired were brought down by air defences and the repair work goes on.
A rare happy ending opposed to the tragedy that normally plagues the shores of the Mediterranean. In the middle of the night, Greek coast guards managed to rescue 9 migrants clinging to rocks under a cliff near the island of Evia. Their boat sunk. Dozens of people were on board. A search for survivors is underway. Europe's unusually warm weather has triggered a surge of migrants risking dangerous Mediterranean routes. In the past week, more than 6,000 have reached Italy's coast. On Tuesday, at least 175 arrived at the island of Lampedusa in 4 different boats.
As Europe continues to battle the energy crisis, Germany is finalizing plans to introduce gas price caps. The unilateral move is part of the country's €200 billion package to limit the impact of inflation. Under the proposals, due to be officially announced on Wednesday, the average household would save around €1,000 a year on their gas bills. Big industrial companies would also benefit from price caps, but in their case, the measures come on condition of keeping existing operations in Germany and 90% of jobs in the country for a year. So far, there's been no agreement on an EU-wide price cap for gas.
Former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appears on the verge of a major political comeback in Israel's 5th election in 4 years. Exit polls have his Likud party scraping a razor-thin win with the help of new far-right allies, the religious Zionist Party. If confirmed, it would mean a record 6th term as Prime Minister for Netanyahu, a job he held for 12 years before being toppled in 2021. The longtime leader's right-wing religious bloc is set to win 61 or 62 seats overall, just clinching a majority in the 120-seat Knesset.
Protesters set fire on UN vehicles in Goma on Tuesday night, protesting against the presence of the UN mission in the DRC, MONUSCO. The blaze started after rumors about the UN allegedly transporting rebels from the M23 group had spread among the displaced people and residents in the city. On Tuesday, MONUSCO announced a strategic and tactical withdrawal from the embattled Rumangabo, where the M23 is trying to advance. Nearly 200,000 people already have been displaced over the past year, even before the latest surge in violence.
Look, I've got to keep showing you Joe Biden's faux pas, even though most of the media pretend them away, of course. Yesterday, the president had something to say about inflation. Have a listen.
And they talk about inflation. You know, we're dealing with it for a whole second. Inflation is a worldwide problem right now because of a war in Iraq and the impact on oil. And
War in Iraq and its impact on oil? Oh dear. Wrong country, wrong war, wrong time, wrong place. But have a look again. I'll run it to the end this time and you'll see that President Biden corrects himself. But listen to his excuse.
And they talk about inflation. You know, we're dealing with it for a whole second. Inflation is a worldwide problem right now because of a war in Iraq and the impact on oil and what Russia's doing. I mean, excuse me, the war in Ukraine. And think of Iraq because that's where my son died.
Look, no one should disrespect Joe Biden's son, Beau. Beau Biden was a patriot. He served in Iraq, that's true. But he returned to the US, was elected there and served as Attorney General in Delaware before dying tragically 6 years after serving in Iraq.